Is there any like just Tipperary Waterford? Obviously, you're a Tipperary man, so you know Tipperary inside out. You were a selector previously with Waterford, so you have a bit of an insight. And based in Bennett's Bridge, probably not a million miles away from it either. What would you say the mood is like in Waterford, given that they're going out this weekend? They've been playing poor hurling. They've been scoring on average. Was it 9 points fewer per game this year versus last year? Very, and like they're gone. People aren't back in the system. Team looks inside out. What would you say the mood is like locally?
Well, you can only see. I suppose you can only listen to what's coming out, and you've been listening to it as well with a lot of, I suppose, former players and a lot of people involved in the Waterford hurling. Very disappointed and disillusioned. Look, we were probably there ourselves last year with Tipperary as regards with things were, and I suppose Liam showing that things can change very, very quickly. So I'm sure Waterford could grab onto that. It's been a very disappointing season for Waterford. Like I said, their scoring hasn't been high enough. And then obviously conceding big scores on the back of that. Plus, I think, and you're looking in from the outside as well, I think Waterford hurling people, like to play a certain way, and I suppose they don't know what way they're playing, and that's a real big disappointment for them. But I think, look, very difficult game to head into. It's nothing on the line, morale on the ground or morale on the floor, and it's a really, really tricky one. I suppose from a Tipperary perspective, we have to go win the match. That'll be Liam's ultimate focus in the championship. And I suppose since Liam has arrived, it's been unbelievably positive. Beating Clare in Clare, which is a difficult thing to do, and the 2 draws subsequently. So it's from a Tipperary perspective, really looking forward to it. And I suppose from a Waterford perspective, I don't know where they are because everything seems to be negative coming out of the camp.
Just on that, it's a dead rubber on paper, but like to me, it's a dead rubber in name only. Like I think
futures are on the line.
Big time. Like, are you telling me that like Davies guaranteed another year, another 2 years if they ship a double-digit beating on Sunday? Like there's a couple of things here. People are not happy with how they're playing. They can't get behind it. Like the lack of support at games is glaring. Like it's glaringly obvious. Like, and if
who's going to travel to Thurles? Like, honestly,
yeah, no, genuinely, and nobody's probably going to travel realistically. But it seems to have been an issue from the very outset, even when he was appointed. I don't know. Like the vibe I got was that it was 50-50 on the appointment. That's veered even less in his favour now as things have gone on and with the way that they've played. I'm not sure. How do you turn that tide? How do you turn that tide like mid-rain? I'm not too sure. Usually Davies got momentum. With Wexford it was momentum at the start. Yeah. With Clare it was momentum in the summer of 13. With Waterford it was momentum in the summer of 08, and they got a good run then in 10 again. I'm not sure how you turn that. I just did a quick poll just for the crack last night, on Twitter there, just to see what people thought, whether Waterford would go for broke and try and cut loose this weekend against Tipperary. 28% said yes, they'll go for it. 39% said no, they'll do the same. 16% mixture of the two, so a bit of old and a bit of new, and 16% some other mad setup. So I don't know. I like if they don't take the shackles off at the weekend and they're beaten, which is more than likely. Like that's like it's an appalling season where they've only got victories over Antrim and Laois. And how do you justify, like, it's all grand talking about long-term vision and Davey saying that he's not going anywhere and stuff like that, but how do you justify that? Do you know what I mean? How do you justify the outlay on, the management team as a whole and all the strings and bows that come with it, with no results to back it up? So I think there's everything to play for Waterford. If they kind of down tools on Sunday and they're beating 15, 16 points or something like that, like to me, that's the end of the road for management team, and it's the end of the road potentially for a couple of players as well.
Yeah, and even just another point on that as regards, like again, I think it was across all codes, hurling and football in Waterford, minor 20, and see, like it's again, yes, your senior is your flagship team, and everything looks at, I suppose, with Davy over the team, everyone's looking in there and looking what's happening there, but I think people need to get under the hood here and have a good look at it. I know, even being friendly with Dan, and Dan being involved with me in Laois this year, and an excellent coach. Like, Dan offered his services to coach the under-20s last year, and it wasn't deemed good enough to do it. So you can see the frustration boiling over with ex-players looking to get involved, not being involved, and then all this happening as well. It seems like it's a mess, and no one likes to see it.
And just on that as well, like if Dan wanted to get involved in the 20s, Andy Maloney, Dan and Ken, like Jesus, like that's a fair backroom team. That's a fair management team for under 20. Let alone like it could be a senior management team. So that's baffling as well. And I don't know. There's a lot as Willie says there. There's a lot of things need to be looked at probably under the hood of what's actually going on in Waterford hurling, and a lot of it is coming to roost at the one time here now in one of the most kind of abysmal years, you'd have to say, for any county. 17 games, championship games played between minor, 20 and senior across both codes, and no victories.
Willie, you played them in the league, and Mikey Kiley got sent off early, you have to say that, but you outplayed them for long spells. Ryan Mullaney was brilliant that day, scored a few goals. Aidan Corby got sent off, and maybe the wheels came off a little bit. I know Enda Rowland's been brilliant in general, but obviously he came out, lost the ball, and they got the goal there. But like, what did you think playing them that day? Because like you were really, really in that game and all over them for long spells.
Yeah, no, I thought we had set up very well as regards. I think we played Tipperary the week before, and Tipperary were kind of playing the ball through us a lot, which was, the Tipperary way as regards. Waterford were very different as regards trying to run the ball from everywhere. So essentially, we took 10 yards back off all our lines and just really asked them to come through us, which, with the extra man, yes, it really helped us, but they didn't really break us a whole lot as regards. They didn't get in. They took the 2 shots in the goal, and they scored 2 goals, which was ultimately the difference in the end. We ran out of juice as regards that physicality and that athleticism in the end did catches, but for 50 or it was 62 minutes, we were well in the game, albeit with a spare man. But I think the biggest thing was that they were trying to run the ball from everywhere, and the bigger teams, if you have more athleticism and you can soak that up for longer, which we weren't able to do. But look, they're in a difficult position. Like, there's absolutely no doubt about it. But a lot of quality players. You mentioned Mikey Kiley there, like, best Fitzgibbon hurler probably in the country last year with Gerard O'Connor. Like, they have some fine players. It's just it hasn't clicked this year, and I don't know that the players don't seem to have bought into ultimately what Davy's plan is. And it'll be interesting to see where it goes, because everything is on the line this weekend for Davy and everyone else.
Can I just ask you, Willie, because as a manager, like, would you want players coming over to you during a game asking what to do? Because I looked at Waterford last year and saw definitely 3 to 4 instances of players coming over asking the manager what to do. And to me, that's just like, I don't know, you can't be spoon feeding lads as well. Like, I'm sure that's not a scenario that you'd like.
No, absolutely, and you're trying to simulate it in training as regards what's going to happen. So if you want to set up in a certain way, as I'll be in that situation, we're going to play 10 yards deeper. We're going to simulate that for the 2 weeks leading into that match as regards to see, can we just try to practice that? Because again, in real time, and albeit again in Portlaoise with no one at the match, you can get messages in and everything else. But like, you look at the White Heat and Munster Championship the weekend, you can't get messages in. Like, it's literally, you can't even get a mere phone over to get a message in. So it's so difficult to communicate on the field. So the work has to be done, and it's back to the Mickey Hart thing 15 years ago. The All-Ireland is won before the All-Ireland as regards. Your preparation is done. Players will react in a certain way through repetition and through what they've experienced over the previous preparation time, and that's what you want to do with players, because again, very difficult to give small messages to players, and again, for players to be asking for instruction on where do I go, what do I do, it's too late in my opinion at that stage if that happens.
Yeah, and not to mention having somebody behind the goalkeeper. Directing puckouts. It feels like we're having, hammering Davy here, but obviously, look, we've many times talked about things that he's done well, winning titles in different places, but it really hasn't gone well so far. And you look at Colin Bonner last year, there was, some bright green shoots in some of the performances, but it was the manner of the defeat the last day out, and the fact that the Tip public weren't showing up, that meant that ultimately he departed basically. But Willie, like, obviously, Liam Cahill very well, fellow Ballingarry man. What changes have you seen in terms of how Tip were playing last year versus this year, and like, what players have impressed you?
Yeah, well, look, I suppose I think we lost on average. I think it was 7 or 8 points last year in the Munster Championship. That's number one. That's a stark difference to what's happening at the moment. And day one against Clare, albeit Clare gave us 3 goals and missed a couple of scores. So, like, it was Clare's first day out as well. But like that was really impressive, going down to Ennis and winning. Again, not rolling over in Cork as regards when the pressure came on and there was a red wave coming at Tipperary in the end in a pulsating game. Like, we held the line and we potentially could have won the match as well. Similarly, last Sunday in Thurles, I think, it was really encouraging as regards that when Limerick squeezed, we didn't go away, and we kept plugging, and we ultimately got the equaliser in the end. But it was a really positive performance. And again, big matches are decided on decisions, and I felt, look, and this is maybe Tipperary blue and gold hat on. I felt a lot of the big decisions went against us in the last 10 minutes where we needed them to go forwards. And ultimately, Liam was penalised with a red card, which I think is absolutely crazy. But it's something that we seem better organised. We have a great idea of what we're doing. Our puckouts were very poor last year, and our retention rate on all puckouts was very, very poor. Even on the second phase, as regards, I'm not sure what the stat was at the time, but we weren't able to get the ball down the field. And even that Clare match, the last match in Thurles last year, where we were beaten by 8, it was noticeably different that we weren't able to work the ball where Clare were. So I think the puckouts is a huge difference. I think our physicality, and you look at again an example of Jake Morris, like he's just he's gone bigger, he's gone stronger, we always knew he was a fantastic player, and from minor 20 and what he's done in senior level, but he's just gone to a different level this year. So I think, look, individually, I think we're better. I think we're better on I suppose strategically on puckouts in particular. And I think there's a bit of momentum, and Liam brings that with teams, that there's a level of organisation. Mikey Beavens is coaching. I think it's very, very positive, and I think we're competing again. We've won nothing yet, but isn't it brilliant to be competing again as a county?
Yeah, you actually have a team that you can really get excited about again, which is a huge thing. And this is despite a huge amount of players being absent: Ford, Heffernan, Morgan, Niall O'Mara, Cadell, Gerard Brown. Like, these are all players who could really add something there at the moment. What do you expect to see this weekend, Willie? Do you expect to see Davy play the same way? Would he swallow his pride and just say, okay, let's go back to a more of an orthodox setup here, the Waterford sort of way? What do you expect?
I don't look again. I don't know if that's Davy's style. I think he's going to go ahead with his way, come hell or high water. But I just think an interesting, I suppose, window in was remember the handshake at the end of the league match where I think Liam or Davy said, look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time or whatever. So that'll add a bit of spice. Plus, I suppose
if Liam is there,
they mightn't get the finger back at each other at all.
Yeah, well, even I suppose, having experienced the GA disciplinary situation in the last weeks with Dan and Eamon Jackman, 2 coaches that were suspended for during or after the Carlow match for our last 2 matches, and it has huge impact on what you're doing as regards, particularly on match day, where you warm up, everything else. And again, the boys, they didn't do, in my opinion, they didn't do wrong, and the crime didn't justify the penalty, because the lads didn't abuse anybody, and I was there. So again, the GA disciplinary system, you just don't know what way that'll work. I hope it works out for Liam, but I wouldn't be confident.
Michael, any questions you want to throw at the tip men this weekend? Are you going to keep waiting to be asked?
No, I tell you what, I throw it over to you first, Just history would suggest that putting in the effort that you put in against Limerick last week will have a massive effect on energy levels this weekend, will have a massive effect on your performance this weekend. So I don't know if Tip will be fully at it this weekend, even though there's still everything to play for. And I don't know. I just think that will have an effect on what they're able to bring to the table at the weekend. And I think if Waterford they have to up their levels massively. If they can throw the shackles off a bit, they might get a bit of joy. But is there any worry from your point of view about that? And just basically, like, it's about 80 minutes all told the last day, like really throwing it down physically to Limerick. And I think I personally would think it'd have an effect.
Well, you had 3 lads who went off with cramp towards the end of the game. I think Gerard O'Connor was one. Connor Stakelum, and there was one other player as well. I'm not entirely sure, but 3 players went off. But I wonder, will Waterford look at the last few years and think Desi Hutchinson has got a lot of joy when he's been close to goal? Like, they ignored the fact that he'd done well against Sean Finn and Rory Hayes in the last few years. But will they say, do you know what, we'll put him closer to goal? Barrett might pick him up. No, I think Barrett will get on better this time because he won't be left as wide exposed as he has.
Will Barrett be fit to play, Shane? Just I wouldn't be 100% sure whether he'd be fit to play as well,
That's another fair question. He was mad to get back on the field, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he was, okay to get back on the field. But Willie, I'd be more concerned if I saw Patrick Kern starting this game, if I saw Carrick Daly, like these lads who have that bit of pace and drive, and if you had Gleeson and Stephen Bennett that bit closer to goal. And I think Dan McCormick will pick up Gleeson like he did in the league if that's the way it pans out. But like, I'd be far more concerned if that was the way, if they went back to a bit more basics.
No, so would I, and I remember even in Porky was it 2 years ago where they beat us with a lot of those players playing. Patrick Curran, I think, is a fantastic player. Like, you know, he was much heralded as a minor in 13, and with the 20s and 16, and his trajectory has, I suppose, plateaued in the last couple of years, or particularly in the last while, where he has seen very little game time. I really like him as a player. I think with Ozzy and Stephen Bennett, these guys closer to the goal, I think, you know, that could really go at us, because again, you look at the Cork match, and we were obviously less porous last Sunday against Limerick, but I think we did look porous at times against Cork when they did come at us, and with the quality of player you mentioned, the Desi closer to the goal, you know, that could, again, it all hinges on whether Davy ultimately says, look, no, we're going to stick with my way, or we're going to go back to, I suppose, the more traditional open Waterford style of play. So yeah, look, it's a big one for both counties in completely different ways, and I think I also like the fact that, again, Liam has, our panel seems to be stronger this year. Like you mentioned, 5 or 6 first teamers there any other year, and they haven't really been missed. Like Calvin coming on the last day, huge, you know, got a great score, and you know, he might be a man to take it on from here as regards. But that quality of player, Bonner coming in the last day, Noel McGrath doing what he does all the time. Like, I think, look, our panel seems strong, and it wouldn't surprise me if Liam picked, you know, subtly different. I think with 4 changes the last day, do something like that again, because I genuinely think our panel is stronger, and we can do this.
Can I just say something on Waterford, Shane? And I don't want to labour the point too much, but there's a point where the senior players need to stand up here and, you know, get the point across that they want to play a certain way, or they want to go a certain way. Even if it's, I remember listening to some of the Irish soccer players, don't know, was it a Euro or a World Cup qualifier against France that time, where they basically all huddled together before the match and said, we're basically not doing what Trapp told us to do, and we're going to just go and play. And they delivered one of probably the greatest Irish performances in history. I honestly think, like, the senior Waterford players need to take this by the scruff of the neck. Either talk to the manager and say that we need to do X, Y, and Z, or just, you know, play a different way. Maybe that would have their manager going absolutely berserk on the sideline during the game if they're not doing what he told them to do. But like, the time has come for them to deliver some sort of a performance and stand up. So I think some of the senior players definitely need to take this by the scruff of the neck, and I definitely wouldn't be absolving players from blame in this scenario either, because you know, particularly like the players down tools against Clare last year, there's no point in saying any different, and we don't like calling out players or whatever, but that's the nature of it, and they've not been at it this year. They need to this is anything but a dead rubber. They need to deliver something here big time.
Willie, is there any danger here for Tip? All this talk now about, oh, where's the Munster final going to be? Basically, Tip are already there without having to play the match. Like, does it seep in with players? Like, did you find this year that there was ever commentary about the Laois team and it might have seeped into the panel?
Definitely. I think, like, we had a few credible performances, even if we use the example of Laois this year in the league. And yes, albeit we were beaten well in a good few matches, but we played well and we got what we wanted to get out. But that did seep in even at first Offaly match this year in the McDonagh. And we thought we were ready, but we weren't on reflection. And we had a fairly frank conversation afterwards with players, as Michael's point there. Players have to take responsibility in this thing too. And in fairness, the Laois players did from that point took responsibility to change what we're doing. I think, like, you know, you look at it, I suppose traditionally Tipperary over the years, we're not great when, you know, we're a little bit confident, which is a dangerous place to be, because
Willie, you're always confident. You're always outrageously overconfident.
Well, no, but I genuinely look, and yeah, no, I think you're right, and I think that's a flaw that we have as regards that we just get a little bit soft. But again, and I'd be, you know, knowing Liam since we were young, that's the one thing that he doesn't allow happen. Like, you look at the 20 teams that won the All Irelands as regards, they never got soft, even though there were you know, high favourites going into certain games, and they won the matches that they should have won, and they won matches potentially that they shouldn't have won, which is you know, even a better you know, anyway. But it's I think we're in a good place going in, but just that. I think with Liam at the helm, I think that, you know, to answer your question, Shane, that won't be allowed to happen, I think.
It's particularly playing Waterford, Shane, as well.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
he'll want to sow it in. He will want to sow it into Waterford, will he?
Well, because he would have been. I'm sure. Like, listen, nobody knows exactly what happened, but there's been all sorts of different things coming out or whatever. But he had them in an unbelievable position for 2 3/4 years, and then nobody knows what happened thereafter. But it ended quite disappointingly. I remember watching Show Sport one Friday night, an interview with Liam, and he was going back as Waterford manager by all accounts. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, he wasn't back, and then a week later, he was Tipperary manager. So I don't know what happened there, or if there was players calling shots or whatever happened. But Liam was at his most vocal during the league when they played Waterford, I would say. And whether he'll be there or not on the sideline at the weekend, it probably remains to be seen, and he probably won't be. But he will have Tip well G'd up. It's not as if they're going to be sleepwalking into this one. No way. Because the manager's passion will ooze into the players, I would say. I'll put it. That's the best way of putting it.
Willie,
I'm sorry, just on that point, I think it might be better if Liam is not on the sideline Sunday, and that might sound, if he's back, he'll have his preparation done, he'll have everything organised to a T, he'll have players mentally ready for the challenge, and I suppose it might be better for him not to be there and let the boys do the business from and watch them from the stand.
And Willie, what about Rhys Shelley though? Like balls like a Bengali tiger, the way he was pucking those balls out against Limerick, like Ivan Needle in his first ever championship game.
Well, look, and again, it goes back to like Liam and Mikey and the management team at Tipperary. Obviously, they saw something on him, or they see something in him as regards as that quality player. It was, again, a big match like that to be doing what he was doing, but the quality of his strike was just unbelievable. Like he was, like Nicky Quaid, I suppose, has been the benchmark for the last couple of years. That left-handed flat shot as regards being able to get it away. Like just Rhys Shelley was, added something to Tipperary last Sunday that probably we haven't had before. Top class goalie. Again, we've seen him with Joel over the last year or two, and he's been so good. And like I think it is a real addition to what we're doing, and in the modern game to have a goalie like that is imperative.